Welcome back. So we are going to start our second session, which is on innovation in network security. We have three eminent personalities here. We are so glad to have them on board with us. Please welcome Mr. Rakesh Goyal. He is the CEO of Infinity Labs. And please welcome Mr. Murugavel Muthu. He is the founder CEO of CosGrid Networks. And we have Mr. Sonit Chen. He is the CEO of CashShield. Thank you so much for joining us today. Over to you, Vinayak.
Yeah, thank you, Sonam, and I again welcome all the participants here. So we heard about the right, and especially in network security, it's a very intense research, basically, and that requires a lot of investment as well and a lot of government support as well. Right? And most of the academic institutions are getting such kind of a good support from the government institution that we heard of, and all of them, three of them talked about the how support, what kind of support they have been getting from the government. But this area is in any other area of cybersecurity is largely software development, right? But the network security is very intense work, very probably comparatively challenging work. And in this area, somebody in India creating the capability in network security is, and that too against the very stiff competition. So there are larger global players in this market which are very strong players, and every other home has their such kind of a footprint seeing in every organization and every other home basically. And in that ecosystem of a challenging ecosystem, challenging market ecosystem, where the investment also, the funding is also very scarce coming to cybersecurity, and then in that cybersecurity again, network security is believed to be one of the difficult areas to look at. So, then how you three of you had started this journey, and what made you to think about network security, and how do we go about it? So we'll capture all of the journey together. But first, to start this or kick off this discussion, from each of you, basically, we'd like to hear that initial trigger that really made you to think about this enterprise, right? And which is a deep technology enterprise in network security area. So I'll start with Sonit first, and then Murugavel, and then come to Rakesh.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for being here, and being present to listen to what we have to say. The seed of our company, Gatchi, began way back in 1994. My previous company, India World, was India's first commercial portal. It was launched in 94, when even before the commercial internet was launched, which was in August 15, 1995. And during that time, when I had to consult a lot of companies of how to use the internet, how to do their business on the internet, I realized that security would be the thing in the future. People would be concerned about data. People would be concerned about the network, the infrastructure, and all the assets. That is precisely what triggered the whole idea of the network security. So when we sold the company, India World 1999 to Citi for $150 million, post that India World war, Gatchi was born. Initial days were scary. I agree. Early 2000, when there were not many Indian products in that space, and that too in the internet security space, there were a lot of pitfalls. A lot of people advised me against it. But I would also say there were a lot of people who encouraged us to go and fight with the biggies during that time. And thanks to all of them today, we are present in 50 countries all over the world. We have 10,000 plus customers, and we've been rated in Magic Quadrant in Gartner's Magic Quadrant. And this wouldn't have been possible without the kind of encouragement that we had from so many industry experts. And thanks to them that we are there.
Yeah. So, Mr. Muthu.
Hi. Good evening, everyone, and good to connect with you all of you. Myself, Murugavel Muthu, CEO of CosGrid Networks. We are a SD-WAN company with integrated security, established in 2016. We haven't chosen this field as such. It's natural in a way that we started working in network security in 1999-2000, from the time of IP security, firewall, and so on. And then we, along our journey of 10 plus years of software development, worked on firewall, IDS, IPS, VPNs, and so on, application firewall, and so on. And then also integral part of is MPLS VPN. Okay, so I also have a very strong base of routing, MPLS VPN. So I was in 2003, 2004. I was part of development in MPLS VPN, IPv6, and so on. So throughout my career, I was kind of associated with VPN, whether it be IPsec VPN, firewall, or MPLS VPN. And after that, I moved to product management as well as business management. And previously, I was working in last 10 years. I was working predominantly in Indian national telco as well as global telco, where I happened to launch a lot of global products in MPLS VPN, WAN optimization, managed services, and so on, right? And then, that time we saw that there is a lot of innovation happening in cloud, Web 2.0, SDN, right? And then the way the vendor community is bringing out innovation was astounding. And if you look at telcos are very good. They are large consumers of networking technology, but the process and the pace at which they bring out the changes are a little bit slow, I would say. Right, so then we saw there is a lot of friction the way things are being deployed, MPLS VPN, enterprise security being delivered, and we saw a lot of innovations happening, and we thought there is a lot of friction in the way, as I said, friction happening. So we thought by combining SDN, cloud-based management and orchestration, plus whatever the security in IP generated from using which what we call multipath traffic steering, we thought we can solve some of the real critical problems, and that's why we set up COSGrid networks, class of service through grids. And then since then, last 2 years we are in the market, and then it's very positive. We have customers across sectors, manufacturing, healthcare, and so on. So yeah, I think we have just started the journey in some ways. Yeah, it's been positive so far with a lot of ecosystem support.
Yeah. So Rakesh, you had been working with the way Mr. Murugal working with the larger companies in network, but you also work with biggies in a network, right? And then you thought about coming to a staff where you have been leading one of the important network product company, global network company in the country, and then you left that and you joined, or you came to a startup, right? So how that initial journey started, right? So can you just help us understanding that?
Yeah, thanks, Vinayak. It's not the usual. I think the startups are run by the youngsters. Yeah. And I admire Sonit. He started 15 years back on network security. I'm sure he had a great vision at that time. And after working for 27 years in the industry, last 13 in Cisco, running the Cisco business for India, I mean, it was certainly a different move. But I've been always very excited with the opportunities the market have been throwing, right? And when you work in a corporate, I think there are great advantages, and companies like Cisco gives you a great opportunity to learn. I mean, fantastic company and great learning platform for anybody in life. But you're limited with what you can do, and the aspirations were always there. I think at this stage, generally people don't jump and do it, but I was excited and I said, why not we do? There were great thoughts. In fact, one of the reasons which kind of triggered this was a requirement when I was talking to various customers to have an automation and orchestration needs. That was the trigger point. And when I looked around, there weren't many companies who were willing to kind of support to that extent the need of the companies to provide. So the key was, how do we create a company who can work on automation orchestration, whether it's network or a security? That's how the journey started. And we started building the automation platforms for various large clients in India and in US. And the success leads one to another, right? And we had great success. Last three and a half years have been a great run. And we have now grown as a company in terms of revenue, in terms of customer base. And so we said we would also jump in and do some other work. Of course, security automation is our key work we do. And some of the very innovative work which we are doing on security while building the firewalls, the next generation firewalls, even what Muthu is doing, SD-WAN. So we built Make in India SD-WAN as a next stage. And we have high aspirations. So it's been a great run. It's been very exciting, very different from what I used to do. But I'm so glad that we've done it. and I'm looking forward to further exciting journey in this space.
Yeah. And each of you have been doing really great in the market, right? So means
Thank you.
people still struggle being in the market, cybersecurity space, people struggle, but being in network security and in such a competitive market, you three of them really good work, and especially with Rakesh, and I think that's where I will also like to come an automation orchestration with Muthu also talk about that, and I will come to him as well. So this was your project that you have been offering, services that you have been offering, but now this has come as a important product feature, right? And that's what network securities market change is more expectation of automation orchestration and probably policy-based governance of a network security element. And that's why now from the project-based services that you have been offering to the various client, now you move to your own product, right?
Yes, exactly. And in fact, some of the automation stuff which we've been doing on the security space has been very interesting. It has been like with one of the large banks in India, we've kind of automated some of their security processes, policy implementation, etc., which used to be all done manually. So a lot of that work we've done. We've done automation work on security, basically on SOAR platform. So we have some unique skills on the SOAR platform. So that is one area which we have. I can talk more about it. But yes, I mean, we've been doing these projects. But now building a product, okay, has been a very different experience. But glad that we have this product now, and glad that we have the next generation firewall, service chained into this product is really exciting. So we're doing a lot of innovation on that, especially on the security side. And when you want, I'll speak more about it.
Yeah. So Muthu, help us understand this orchestration piece, right? And what role it plays in automation, and especially in the context of the network.
Yeah, I think we started with primarily on SD-WAN, and then obviously, as you know, SD-WAN and cyber network security is like kind of integrating, and now it's becoming SASE kind of thing. So what we do is that we monitor the network quality, link quality, application-based policies. All of them are fed into the orchestration. And the orchestration layer is continuously monitoring the link quality, and the other primary link quality and path quality, and then based on the continuous monitoring, right, and the policy has been fed with that, it automatically centrally kind of programs the path, the pitch path to choose, or whether it should be a load balanced, or it should be a active backup kind of thing. Okay, not only for the primarily internet, but also for tunnels actually. So that is the very simplistic, but at the same time, whatever is required for as from an orchestration point of view. Yeah, it also does the alarms and reports and all those things.
Yeah. So Sonit, so the next generation network security is looking at a very different stack and capabilities. So we talk about this context aware, content aware, policy governed kind of a network security. So what technical stack that drives all of these things? So what we have been experimenting with, what we have been working with?
Okay, in terms of our security, and one thing that our engineering team does, that we look at the DAPU. We call it as an internal name. We call it as a DAPU, and we're trying to contain the DAPU within the next generation firewall. Now, what DAPU means is DACU. So D is data, A for application, C cloud, and E user. So that's what we're trying to contain. And one of the basic, application now is pretty much solved. The people are able to identify what kind of application go through. Of course, with TLS 1.3, that is going to become a little more difficult to do. But that is kind of solved. But what we're really looking at is the data and cloud part of it. When you have the data passed to the cloud, especially the SaaS application, you need to identify what is this data that is going out. That is the data getting leaked out. How do you ensure that there's no breach happening? And that is precisely what we do. And we've been doing that now for more than about 12 years. What we have is a context intelligent data leak prevention system on our firewall. And lately, Gartner started calling it as CASB, or Cloud Access Security component, so that is what we've been doing on a firewall. Now the basic aspect that has been solved, what we're looking at, is the you part of it and the user, and the user is one that we feel is the most scariest part of all of the other stack that we are trying to control and manage, because he's the most unpredictable part, and that's where we bring in ML and machine learning more into it. We'll speak more as we talk, but that's where we said, where we're looking at data, application, cloud, and now we're coming back to the view of this whole DACO that we want to contain within the next generation firewall.
And you talk about your engineering team, right? And these 10,000 plus clients across the globe, and that too fighting with some of the larger biggies who have good market valuation plus good investment flowing into them. So against that competition, so how you're able to retain, grow your team? So are you able to get those engineers which can have that nuance and detailed understanding? I know all of yours come from the larger companies, but is it really easy to get at engineering level the people who can understand the nuances of network security?
Yeah, I would agree entirely that getting resources in India is a difficult task, especially when it comes to related to network security. But the whole idea about security, does excite a lot of people. And today we see a lot of young crowd would want to be a part of any startup which deals with security, whether it's cyber security or network security. And the kind of work that we've been doing, especially with Data Leak and the contextual intelligence engine that we're building in, that really excites a lot of people in terms of what can be done on the next generation firewall. And believe me, thankful to our engineering team. This is one of a kind in the world, and I can proudly say that that not many other next generation firewall has these kind of components that we have been able to build, and our engineering team have been able to build. So the excitement is what drives a lot of people, and that helps us to retain people. But I entirely agree. We do get, but it is difficult getting the right resource in India.
So, to what your experience have been? So building team, is it easy or is it challenging, or how you have been?
Yeah, generally, I think people, you can get more AI/ML engineer than a network engineer or a security engineer.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
then, but we don't specifically look for, people. We look for passionate people, and we can, kind of train them, right? And that is how we are approaching. And we also have an extended team, right? CTO level people or working from US and Canada and so on. They are advising at the top level of the way to, from a technology standpoint of view, right? But yeah, from execution engineering point of view, yes, they may not be good at cyber security and tech security. I think they nowadays they have some basic understanding of networking, and with that they are able to build up the product. I think that is that has been good. As long as we get a pretty good developer, I think that is good enough. Yeah, getting that good developer has been always a challenge for a startup. So that anyway, yeah.
So Rakesh, tell us about the engineering operations that you have. So tell us how it has been devised, how many people which are working, and there's always a discussion about the scale and volume of a development that you need to cater when you are coming into product side. So tell us more about how this has been organized in Infinity Lab, and how the teams are organized, where they are located, and how you have been looking at the product. And more importantly, it's not only one-time exercise. Continuous updation needs to be looked at. Continuous, all the data which is coming from your solution absolutely be looked at. So can you just help us understand how you're organizing internally to take care of these product requirements?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, I would agree that the hiring is a big challenge, is one of the big challenge. I think the bigger challenge is retaining. Because for companies which are startups, people, I would say the good people are real assets, right? Mm-hmm. So it is important that we retain those people. First is, so it's a lot of selling which goes when we interview people. There's a lot of selling. And you got to make them a part of the company. You've got to have them kind of be associated with company and see this company as a future. So, while we are young, but we kind of rolling out the ESOP options and other stuff. So people feel a part of the company. Now, in terms of organization, how we have structured it in various BUs. So we have an automation BU, we have a software BU, and we have SD-WAN BU, or a product BU from that perspective. So we've structured it and we have segregated those teams. The good part is, I think, one good thing which I think we've done is we've hired good leaders. So what happens is my engineering leader is a very, very strong leader, right? He's a technology guy, he understands this, so he drives this. And the two is when you are developing new things, when you're working, so and you have a strong leader, then they can attract good talent. And when they attract good talent and give them a good work on an ongoing basis, I think that's the mantra for retention for the youngsters. As long as you're engaged, as long as you're connected, as long as you are giving them good quality work and the learning curve is on, they will be happy. And since we're doing a lot of this work, automation work, orchestration work, we now have our own orchestrator as well, which works multi-device, multi-vendor devices, etc. A full-blown our own automation platform. We have the SD-WAN, we have the firewall. So all these things now give them an opportunity to switch after they spend certain time. And they see that okay, if there is an interest to work on a different, more customer-oriented work, there is an opportunity to move from one team to another. I think these are some of the things which we're doing, but it's a BU-oriented approach. There is an engineering team who owns the development work and very aggressive timelines. It is not, since it's not a very large team, it's not as structured as I am used to seeing in some of my previous companies, previous roles, but it's like more hands-on. You know, everybody's hands-on, they're working together, and relatively smaller team. But key is keep them engaged.
Yeah. So one part, and I will also ask other people to dictate as we are with. So the product and network security is not only software piece, right? You need to have those hardware, you have those boxes basically. So tell us more about managing the supply chain aspect. So how it is working in most of them may be sourced from other parts of the geography as well. So how that happens and how easy until now, and especially after these all the geopolitical issues that we have been looking at, how easy it is like to source or obtain and ensure that your entire development is lean and it is delivering to the requirement coming from the market.
Okay, so we haven't hit the road from that perspective on hardware stuff, but what we have done right now is for SD-WAN and firewall, we have kind of engaged the professionals to do that supply chain work.
Okay.
That's not our core strength, and we believe that we shouldn't be spending time on that. So we've engaged agencies who are good in logistics, supply chain, and they're doing that job. So it's been...
So Muthu or Sony, please, if any of you have been working on hardware side and managing the supply chain, can you throw light on it?
Yeah, I think that's really one of the hardest part of network security in actually, right? In fact, as SD-WAN, we don't do our own hardware as such. There is x86 flat boxes, ARM, MIPS. Probably would have used some 10 different tested and integrated our software with some 8 to 9 different platforms, locally sourced from Taiwan to US and so on. That is the toughest part actually. In fact, that is creating a lot of friction. Of course, so having said that, we have been able to manage that to some extent, except that, the POCs have been difficult. We have to ship the boxes to the field and then get it back. All those things are slightly, we have been able to manage. But since the COVID has come, I think, in fact, since even from Jan itself, the supply chain has been disrupted to some extent, and even logistics and so on. So in fact, what we are actually doing is that we are going also in a only software-led approach. So we are working on that part actually. So we feel like we are kind of pivoting to a different model actually. In fact, to some extent, but we hope things will hopefully get better. So we have some inventories at this point of time to manage. But it's been a little bit of supply chain shocks there. We hope. I think this is the right time for India also to build the kind of a supply chain, but it will take some time. Yeah, so we are trying to make sure that only the software only model initially. So it's a harder part actually.
Yeah. So Sonit, I think you must be having a larger experience in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Initially we began with the software firewall, but then we soon realized, I mean, look at the cycle of development. We started with software firewall, then came the hardware firewall. We are back to virtual firewalls, back to software. But yes, most of our component today is related to hardware, and we custom make our hardware in Taiwan. So most of it we have a couple of vendors. We work only with them. Work with them very closely in terms of what do we want in terms of components. In terms of how do we want the network processors to be on the hardware appliances. How do we speed up? We test. So we do go through a very rigorous cycle in testing the product. But yes, the manufacturing still does not happen in India. The components still come from Taiwan. Of course, a couple of vendors from there. Yes, absolutely. We would want these manufacturing to happen in India, but fab industry setting up is a huge expensive part of industry. It's a very industry which creates a lot of pollution, and you don't have a lot of fab industries around the world other than Taiwan or say China. So I don't see that happening easily, where we'll start seeing manufacturing, especially in the network security. Because still the volumes are not very, very large. Today we just had iPhone 11 announcement being made that it's going to be manufactured now in India. It's so happy to know that they've started. Hopefully someday we'll see this manufacturing of network appliances, and we'll be able to work with companies to have them manufactured in India.
Yeah, that's a very important comment. So we are attracting that manufacturing, but largely in a bulkier product side, but probably very deep technology product is still a lot of work needs to be done if suppose that has to be manufactured in the country. And probably all the network player has to be, we will look at how exactly this is evolving in the country and what can we do at the industry level to improve on this particular part. So, so Sunit, as we are with you, so with this COVID pandemic, right, and so entire this remote access, work from home, and now suddenly all that shifted to the effort of providing the remote access and managing security of the environment. And now suddenly most of the security providers have been, and there are some terms which get crafted, right? Get crafted. So, for example, SASE ecosystem, and some of the security providers, networks that have been talking about, they are a SASE provider, right? So, how you are seeing with the SASE model which is evolving, or remote access model, or zero trust networking ecosystem which is evolving?
The way we see it today, of course, a lot of virtualization would happen with the network security model, and we see that this will move to the cloud. With pandemic, as I always say that we've seen three phases. In Gut Shield, we've seen three phases of the way the data, application, and users have moved. The first phase where the application, data, and users were within the network. Then came the cloud phase, where we had the data and the application move out, and now we have the pandemic phase, where all three of them have moved out. So none of them are still there within the network. There's an irony, and yet we have a network security solution binding all of these three together. With the SaaS model, one thing that we see is that this would be really taking up. We've already seen a lot of enterprises in India asking for SaaS, but they're still a little hesitant in moving security to the cloud. That's somewhere there is a hesitance. But having said that, and I personally feel with a lot of data privacy laws coming in place, and we will see a rework of the whole architecture of ways, because today data and application are with few large companies. So you have a lot of large companies holding the data and the application. Many enterprises do not want that anymore, because there's a lot of liability in holding customer data. So we will see a change in the network where the owners of application and data will move to the user. And we already started seeing some research happening over there. And security will again get transformed soon. So I see, yes, security as a service is definitely something that people are started asking post the pandemic, not pre-pandemic. and we'll see that again increasing, but probably will change again, probably in a year or two, when again the architecture changes.
So, Muthu, because you did with the VPN, like in previously in the technology aspect, and suddenly that become a very important piece where not only the VPN itself has been important to move to the work from home environment, but the VPN itself is getting challenged, and there are so many architectures like a ZTNA, software defined perimeters, and all of those are architecture now. SASE, which is SASE, which is also evolving as an alternate to the VPN solution. So, how do you see you standing around this kind of are these a buzzword for temporary reason, or they would
okay, I think, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, in fact, that's also a key point that is, it's an impact for us actually. Yeah. So I think broadly, like people are using VPN. Definitely, VPN is the simplest, most proven. From IT training point of view, everything is, it's a very simple product, and people are still using it. And obviously, there is one product which is really have taken off in this pandemic is secure web gateways. I know like Zscaler kind of thing. I see that there are a lot of traction. Obviously, if you look at SASE as a bundle of CASB, DLP, SOCA, whatnot, you can stack around everything in the world you put together and say SASE. Who wants that? I mean, frankly speaking, even if you look at the zero trust access, even in fact, I'm looking at BeyondCorp model or SDP. I think there is a lot of complexity. There are like wonderful, storyline. I would say the very, very clearly intelligent and very nice, integration of technology. Single port authorization, and so on. But when it comes to adoption and rolling out, I see there is a lot of challenges. So even if you look at Google's BeyondCorp, which is using identity aware proxy. So it works only with some browsers. It doesn't work with IE and so on. There are a lot of caveats are there. I mean, So yeah, definitely the attraction for these SDP as well as the SASE related stuff, is going to pick up. But then there are a lot of hurdles towards that. So the better approach we think is that instead of VPNs are like 2 decades old. When I started career, worked on even today VPN. We can IPsec VPN, or it can be Open VPN or any kind of VPN. I think they're all very proven. The only thing is that we can add MFA, more context, device context, identity context. People are talking about from SDN to identity defined network or something like that. So I don't know how far it will go, but like adding a much more fortifying the security using MFA and having some context. I think that will go a long way in adoption. Otherwise, what works for a Fortune 500 company may not work for a or even enterprise company, may not work for mid-sized companies or so on. Yeah, things are definitely will go that direction. We have to see how, wait and watch how, but we are also traveling in the direction to make sure that it works. Security is taken care well.
Yeah, thanks. And let me take the discussion to the different gear and with Rakesh. So the partnership becomes important. So this is a game of multiple players coming together and leveraging from everybody's capability. So you had been able to evolve good level of partnership with this one. Can you just throw light on the with company which is coming with this capability? So what kind of partnership really helps you to reach to the larger market, and how exactly you browse the market through the vehicles of a partners and sometimes channel partners as well? So you are on a mute track.
Okay, so typically I think there is a lot to be learned from some of the bigger players who are existent. I think what the key is, how do we kind of partner with them to create a solution which makes sense for end customer? So the partnerships are very, very critical. At some places, I feel that there is no need to rework on some of the things which exist, but bring some uniqueness in partnership with some of these companies. Like one of the companies we worked together, a large MNC, we worked together and built an automation platform which provides migration from their old legacy products to new products in an automated fashion. Okay, we partnered with one of the large security players in the automation domain, where we built solutions for customers which made sense. One of the, typical used case here, interesting used cases, that one of the service providers wanted to create or provide to their users parental control on the broadband access. Today, broadband access is open for everybody. So they wanted to create a parental control.
Okay.
So technically, when they were talking to various firewall vendors, firewalls work on a principle of you tell the IP address, based on IP address it can. But at home, you get different IP addresses and all that. So the authentication mechanism works with DSLAMs, with the AAA servers, and independently firewall works independently. So the solution was not there. So we built a middleware. Not only provided the UI, we built a middleware. We built a middleware which would talk to DSLAMs, AAA servers, firewalls, keep a track on all the logs, authentications, authorizations, and then pass on that information to the firewall for them to be able to provide that service or apply those policies for that user. So this was a unique solution. There was another outside India, one country, wanted to apply kind of create a system where if you take the example of India, sometimes like in Delhi or Assam or some other cities, there are times when the government blocks certain applications like WhatsApp or data sometimes, or some mobiles, they block. So all that is an ongoing. So the typical work is that the government goes to the service providers in that region, and ask them to block those services, which they do manually, all that. In this country, they wanted to keep that control with them, and they wanted to do it immediately. So they wanted to create a platform with all the service providers. So we again partnered with the firewall vendors, and we kind of installed the largest firewalls in each of the service providers, created a middleware, and provided access to the service provider. So this we demoed to the guy, and there was a win-win for both of us in the end. And our team is right now developing those kind of platforms. So these are some of the used cases. Typically on security side, I was talking about a large bank in India. They have a separate team which kind of through a case management tool picks up the cases where each of their branch offices would open for requirements or request for policies, changes or creation or deletion of some of the older stuff, and they would do it manually. The central team sitting, they would have a 3 to 5 days of response time, and we built a platform where all this became automated. So this is the partnership, with the players who are doing the best in their fields and create a win-win story. That makes the partnership much stronger, and then you start building on top of them some of the value added. Like with one of the players, a load balancer player in India, we are developing the reporting for them because they don't have a good reporting platform. So
yeah, really good really understanding about how this works with the different set of players, and that also involves not only technology company but also the user companies as well who are buying the security solution. So Sonit, I think you talked about 50 plus countries that you serve, right? And so those countries you have been reaching, and so that reach is not only with you. You must be engaging with some kind of a partners to take you to the market. So one is the marketing sales driven partnership, and other is the technology driven partnership. Can you just throw some light on this part?
Yeah, in terms of the partner business, of course, we are a channel-driven business. So in India, we have Ingram Micro as a distributor, as well as in the Middle East, Africa, we have D-Link Middle East, Africa as our aligned partner. Strategically, we work with them, and distributors across other countries too. I agree, we do work with local technical companies, so a lot of companies, especially right now, we're working with a lot of African companies where they have a lot of insight in terms of, Africa, I would say, is a virgin market right now. They're just, getting developed. And there are a lot of requirements, and there's a good ecosystem for companies like us to be present over there with the other technical partners, in terms of, especially with the, service providers. So we're working with the service providers, the technical partners, and trying to see how we can provide solution to the end customers, and the internet services that are right now being spread across Africa. So that's how we do. So we work with distributors, and along with distributors, we work with the channel partners. So we continuously have engagement with the technical partners as well as the sales partners. So we continuously do that so that we understand each region, because each region is very different. I would say each country. And luckily that we're working in India. India itself represents about more than four, if I were to put it, about 5 to 6 countries India represents. So each, like South is very different from North, West, East. Yeah. So that's where it gives us a good advantage when we're working with the other countries, because we have already understood how it works in India.
So one another important area which I want to really check with three of you about the platformization of security that you provide. Right? And most of the network security players have been saying that their solution is not a point solution; it's a more platform, and you have the kind of a global research plus state operations center where you do a lot of research, and also you get data from each of your devices installed in a client location. So that data also enriches your experience and also throws you to different new use cases, and then that can be used to provide gains to other client basically. So all the people on this platform leverage from your capability, but also they contribute back to the data and their experience basically. So are you starting this journey, or this is it again a difficult conversation that you usually, because if you have to, I know the privacy definitely will come into the picture when you talk about this kind of architecture. So how do you see this platformization as a journey for the building security product or security solution? So I'll start with Sunit first, and then we'll come to this.
Yes, in terms of today, what we do is, of course, in terms of threat management, one of the very important aspects is that, you, of course, get a lot of intelligence from the number of devices that we have across the world. But we also work with a lot of other service providers and, threat intelligence providers who keep providing us with threat intelligence. And of course, we give back in terms of what we have in terms of, threats that we receive at each of these devices that we have as an install base, of course, limiting to the privacy issues that each of them have. So absolutely, as a platform, it is very important, because not only you are sniffing what is happening on the internet with the kind of sensors that we have around the world, but it is also important to gain from the experience that the others have and give this feedback back to them. Only then, I think, when you're working like a team, I think even when we, as security, though we may be competing with each other, but when we work like a team, the ultimate goal of securing enterprises would be achieved. And I feel absolutely, as a platform, we need to, send information back and receive from there, so that we can build a very strong system in place.
So Muthu, means I know this is it on our architectural discussion that we hear a lot when we talk about network security players, and they also including talk about the platformization, and also they make this platform open for others to work on, and the startup to work on. So anything that you have been doing in this direction?
Yeah, I think nothing. I think more. I mean, as such, like we are, we are also working with some partners who have their own orchestration piece, right? I mean, and they want to work with our orchestration through REST APIs. So those kind of activities are happening, so making it the orchestration as well as the network open, which is all about SDN, right? So that kind of thing is happening. But beyond, I think beyond that point, like it's more like general product improvements. Like one customer has some specific requirement in terms of reporting, in terms of features like URL tracking, those kind of things, which are naturally is getting rolled out to other customers.
So Rakesh, what kind of research that you do? And this research is largely security research I'm talking about. Most of the companies try to invest their effort to understand what is going on and try to learn from that and pass on that, because security is two things. Your solution must be doing some action, so you must be enforcing something, but while doing that, you also generate data, and that data can be intelligence to others, and others' intelligence can be data for you to take action, basically. So how do you organize the the threat intelligence operation, how do you organize the research part of the work that you do? And if there is something that you do on the malware research side, so can you just sort of, if somebody asks a question about it.
Okay, so I'll tell you some of the interesting things we are doing on this. There are two different aspects to this. One is related to the data collection, and one is how do we kind of build more intelligence related to security on top of it. So first, in a device, which is the SD-WAN device or a firewall, we have built-in streaming telemetry. Now, as you know, traditional models of SNMP, I mean, almost all devices today use SNMP, which is a kind of a pull mechanism, and it provides the updates on an interval basis, few minutes, few seconds, depends on how you configure it. And of course, it has its own limitations. So your information is as latest as the last update you got, right? And this prevents for any kind of a next level, if we talk about AI, ML, etc., if you have to apply those things, it poses some limitation there because data is not real time. Yeah. So we have in our product introduced streaming telemetry right now. I mean, today, most of the vendors have this in the roadmap. So we shift the game where it is a real-time data, it's a real-time, so a lot of things can be done on top of it. That is first part. So we're changing the game, and then a lot of new stacks can be built. And in fact, my team is working on few stacks, which can be applied on real-time for preventive or a real-time actions or decisions taking capability it provides. The second thing is, I think our team is working on from a traditional DPI, which is a deep packet inspection mechanism, which kind of prevents or enables the restriction or allowing a particular application, right? However, we know that if let's say, for example, if I allow YouTube has many contents which you would like to prevent, right? So we say it is typically a deep content analysis. I mean, we've kind of coined that word DCA, deep content analysis. So the capability which we are building is using the meta tags. If we can filter out those traffics, not just the application level, but the meta tags, use it and see which URLs you want to block within the application level. So that is the next level of work which our team is doing, and we feel that is going to be very interesting. And once we apply that, there are a lot of use cases which will start available on that.
So now you have some 7 minutes available, and I definitely want to spend those time because there are startups, but there are some academia side people on this particular participation list, and so in the area of cybersecurity, especially in the area that you work in. So we talk about a lot of this Make in India specific initiative of government of India. So how much that is helping you in your businesses basically? One is the creating market here in India and other parts of the globe. Is that slogan which has been made at a national larger level, it drained out to extend that critical help to you?
It's funny.
I think I will start with Rakesh and I'll come to Muthu because I have a specific point to talk on.
It's for me?
I'm asking Rakesh first.
Okay, Rakesh.
Yeah, I think I think it's the timing is the best in my opinion right now. I think the government initiatives and support for startups has never been better before. Yeah. I think it's going top down, and I can see it's not just in the books. It is getting applied. I think the message is loud and clear. This is encouraging a lot of startups. I think it is difficult for startups to compete with companies which are existent, multinational, have thousands of deployments. I think a lot of relaxation is being given. Make in India is getting promoted, which is very good. I think it has never been as good as it is today. And in my, sorry.
Yeah, please.
No, and in my opinion, the changing dynamics of COVID, if we take it positively, I think it's putting a new set of opportunities because the things are changing. Anyway, the dynamics has been changing. You talked about SESE, you talked about a few other things. The importance is the perimeter of organization shifting up to house, right? So people need to secure the devices at house, the organization, and provide a secure access. It's becoming difficult. So some of the SD-WAN solution, the security needs have significantly shifted. And also the traditional routers and other stuff. I think the Gartner report says that 90% of router refreshes by 2022 will be replaced by SD-WAN or virtual CPEs. It's a big stuff, right? And with COVID, etc., I think it's becoming more significant. And in India, the cloud adoption, the government push, the government participation. I think, look at this session. I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, nobody has ever thought of bringing the academy and the industry together, right? It's a fantastic. These things were not happening to this level before.
Yeah. So Muthu, I think I would definitely want you to talk this, and also I from all of these panelists here and as well as from the participants, I definitely want to congratulate you because you have been selected by the grand challenge of the government of India, right? And there is a particular use case solution.
Yes.
Right? And, so that is I definitely want to make that point, but that is one important thing that government is doing at the national level, and then there are so many other things happening. So tell us how they are helping you, and not only you but across creating the ecosystem for cybersecurity.
Correct. Yeah, I think I am sure I'm very much very, very positive and thank the ecosystem, Indian startup ecosystem. That's currently today, because we started with NASSCOM, and we have been NASSCOM 2000 startups, and then we have been recipient of DST, Department of DST funding for Nidhi Prayasi, because we had some intellectual property, and now cyber security challenge, I think, is also another very, very important thing, because that is actually embedded us into more our security journey, because from SD-WAN, we are also getting into more of a depth of security at this point of time, and the cyber security challenge gave an opportunity to do that actually. Otherwise, what happened is that as a startup, we have a lot of other priorities, right? We are lean and we have a lot of other priorities, and then we go into the typical cycle, right? But then these kind of capability enhancing initiatives are like we really helped us actually, and I'm sure this will continue, and we will I think startups like us will definitely make use of this opportunity in a big way, and then we will build a better ecosystem. I think another thing, as I said, like Make in India, we want to see more. Like Startup India, I'm sure it's a success. I mean, I would say from my personal point of view, Make in India, I know like it will show more. I think so.
But so we had this academia coming and talking with the research. So you all would be open to partner and engage with them, right? So
yeah, definitely. We already work with IIT Madras to some extent, but yeah, definitely we want to. We already work with a couple of institutions, and but yeah, we want to, in fact, have diverse academic. We want to work with them. We will definitely take it forward. Yeah.
Sonit, I think yours is the largest, more than 15 years and 10,000 plus customers across 50 countries, and now your story is a scale, right? So you may reach to this level, but reaching to scale is a larger thing. You need to build the capability, you need to have probably investment as well, and you need to have local global market quite significant and big enough to help you with this one. So I can understand from the Rakesh, I can understand from your side, but from your side, your challenge may be a scale level. So is this ecosystem now right enough to address the scalability requirement of the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. When we began, as I said that, accepting a product out of India was not that easy. I think one of the challenges that we faced was that Indian companies were not willing to accept the Indian product, because, I don't blame them, because not many products really came out of India. Now, this whole idea of vocal for local and Make in India, that is tremendously helping us. In fact, we've already seen that happening on GEM, where especially companies from India, where you have preferential market access to government tenders, and you're able to win them. So that is really helping for us, and all these while you're focusing more outwards. our focus inwards was very limited in terms of India, because we thought the market is far more developed. We could reach out to market outside much easier than in India, because as I said, India is a huge country, and reaching out for a company like us would be difficult. But now, I think in the last couple of years, we've seen a tremendous push towards Indian product, and especially related to security. In fact, we're working with a lot of government companies and government sectors, where we're trying to build something for India, so it could be very security, dedicated to India. And that precisely is helping. And now we're also seeing a lot of change from companies, for the first time in so many years, where Indian companies were not open to Indian products. Suddenly that has changed. I think there's a pride in accepting Indian product. And that really feels very nice, that yes, things are changing, and that will help us scale in India, and that will kind of give us a boost in trying to reach out to and even in the large enterprises, and build on the ecosystem which is already being provided by the government today.
So I think this has been really great conversation, and we not only looked at a larger ground, but we try to look at different nuances and different dimensions of the discussion, right? And this also gives us as a BSA confidence about if given a kind of a effort, and now with the Minister of IT and supporting us, we have set up this National COE for Cybersecurity Technology Development and Product Entrepreneurship, and also putting up an executive effort and some resources to make this happen. So that tells us that the commitment from the government is quite significantly higher. And now with this effort, and especially the programs like this Grand Challenge, the Grand Challenge itself has led to almost 30-50 new startup registers in the last 6 months of time. It was so surprising for me to see. Although some of them have got shortlisted, but there are many new products which are coming, and their pipeline of the service products which have already exist in this country because of the Grand Challenge. So many these kind of initiatives are really helping, but taking this initiative to dev technology area is very important. Taking them to area which is very significant, very critical for the country. And that's what work that we have been doing in network security area, which is one of the critically important. And we hear our supply chain issues and why such kind of capability needs to be developed in the country is definitely important part, and this kind of ecosystem would certainly help to create that. And as an early torch bearers of this particular journey, I really thank you, Muthu, Sodip, and Rakesh, and congratulate you for taking this journey and showing many people, including BSA and other many aspiring engineers, to show the way. If you think about your own, if your dream, and now there is a possibility of making it reality, basically. And thanks really for joining us, and really be part of this journey with us in creating this ecosystem. And we really this particular session is really giving me a lot of ideas about what can we do together to take this discussion and this collaboration ahead. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Vinayak, for having me.
Thank you, Vinayak. Thank you, everyone. Nice. Thank
you.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. I hope all the audience enjoyed the session, and we'll be sharing a small feedback survey after this event so that you can share your thoughts about the session, and any new thing that you want to learn about in network security, please do reach out to us. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rakesh.
Thank you.